Hello and welcome to How to Art, the podcast for creatives, dream chasers, anyone looking to take something they love and make it just a little bigger part of their life. My name is Petravita, and I am your host. Every week on this podcast, we focus on a specific discussion or issue that can help someone pursuing something creative do a little better in their field. We also kick off each episode with a brief little update on where I am since leaving my job in November. A couple weeks ago when we checked in, shit was tough. And you know what? It still is, but been grinding, been doing a little bit more of the same. Since the last time we talked, I've got a couple of voiceover gigs come in. Have worked through a lot of music. Have an EP coming out at the end of April, which is why I'm pushing people towards Spotify now. So that's becoming more, those paid streaming services, more of a strategy for me. And continuing with the live stream. Some of you may know that I live stream 5 days a week myself. Creating a song is both a creative outlet, exercise, and also a way of building an audience. That's where I'm at right now, focusing on bringing in more income from each of those things, and also very soon a focus on branching out into more and more live shows. Since the last time we spoke, got on stage for the first time in quite some time, had a blast at that, and hope to do it again soon. That's pretty much what's going on in my world, and let's jump into what's probably more useful for most of you. And if you want to hear anything else, you are, of course, always welcome to reach out and ask questions at Petravita Music on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook page, etc. Or just Petravita. Search me up on any music service, Snapchat, etc. All right, let's jump into the topic. The topic for today is finding your audience and, more importantly, finding your correct audience, okay? So whenever you're doing something creative, you may have an idea of who your audience is, but it might not be right. You might not quite have it in your head correctly from the get-go. And let me explain why that's really important. Knowing your exact audience, especially you, this will be familiar to you if you come from a business background, a marketing background. Having an intimate understanding of exactly who makes up your audience is the only way you can deliver to them the type of content that's interesting, that's valuable to them, and that will ultimately build your brand and build what you're doing. In this case, your brand is your art, your music, your sketches, your paintings, your maybe you're starting a business for something, so it's whatever your startup does, etc. So it's important to have the correct audience, because once you understand your audience, you can find out what they're looking for and actually give them that stuff. Now, we talked a little bit before on a previous episode about going above and beyond, and that kind of ties in with delivering the right content. And this is always, what I'm about to talk about is, of course, easier with some more concrete examples. So let's talk about that. For example, let's say you are a producer who is making beats or making instrumentals, okay? You know that the people who are... and I'll give an example of how knowing your audience well can dictate what content you make and how you grow. So if you're a producer, you know that the people you're trying to sell your instrumentals or sell your beats to are going to be, let's say, rappers and singers. Basically vocalists, people who need music to put their vocals over. And you want to sell to them. So you want to have a big audience of rappers and singers. Now, if you know that from the get, and you know that those people are searching for things like how can they mix their vocals better over a song, etc., you can design your content. You can put out things that might be a little counterintuitive to other people who aren't as cued in as you are. For example, I've seen beat producers put out fantastic tutorials on YouTube on how to actually mix a raw rap vocal over a beat. And they put that out because they know that rappers will find that video when they're looking for help. And when they see that it's made by someone who makes beats, then they're in that ecosystem of when they're ready to buy something, they might go to that producer because they helped them out, they know their name already, etc. You can do this in a number of ways. For example, let's say you really like to paint animals, okay? In particular, you love painting guinea pigs, right? and you go on, you look, and obviously in this scenario, all right, we're getting kind of weird here, but you're like, let's say guinea pig owners. Okay, you know that they're gonna like your art. They're most likely to, and they'll share it around. Well, you might go around and see what pictures of people are people taking with their pet guinea pigs. Okay, what you go in like a Reddit subreddit for guinea pigs or something. They got bows in their hair, etc. And maybe you can reverse engineer what people are doing or what they like or find funny or cute with those animals, and work that stuff into the drawings or the paintings you put out, sorry, as a way to draw in specifically those people. For something a little less obscure, for me, for example, making music, I know that what's going to make people connect and follow me is not it's not just being there making songs, being another rapper or another singer. What's going to make people connect is the music needs to make people feel things, be inspired, relatable stories, concepts, etc. in the lyrics. And so when I know that those are the things that might win over my audience, what I can do then is look at the other content I put out on social media and think about what things that aren't songs might be interesting. Now, this is why people, workout instructors, people who are selling personal training, etc., or workout courses, that's why a lot of their content, when you see content that's not just a picture of someone buff or someone really ripped, that content might be an inspirational quote, because they know a lot of their audiences needs encouragement to keep grinding, to keep going. For me in music, it might be the same thing, pulling out lyrics that I think especially evoke a certain emotion that might make people think, okay, who is this guy? He's saying something interesting, and I can put that, put that in some typography, put it out on Instagram, on Facebook, etc. You can also think about this. Knowing your audience is super important, and finding it when it comes to other more general demographics. Let's say age. Okay, if you are honest about where your customers are for a business you're doing, you'll figure out what platform to be on more easily, where to put your focus. You'll also might get a gauge of their cultural awareness. What celebrities, if you post some meme or quote or something from someone, if you've established your audience, you have a better chance of choosing someone that they actually know who it is when you quote, or a cultural phenomenon they know about. For example, right now, if you were selling something to 65-year-olds, it might not be that great of an idea to incorporate something from the very popular video game Fortnite into your content. However, if you've got kids anywhere from 12 to into their 20s and in college and beyond as an audience, then that could be a really, for me, making a song about Fortnite would actually be a good idea. Making a music video about Fortnite, putting it out there, had a chance to grow quite big. So by knowing those types of things about your audience as well, you can key in a little bit on what they might be aware of. Yeah, I think that's the gist of what I wanted to get at today. I've got a lot of different ideas for episodes, but as you guys know, I try and keep them kind of concise, one concept or one point for episodes, so it's easy to consume. Doesn't take that long, and so I think that's probably about where we want to be on this one. As far as actual ways to do market research, the best thing you can do when looking for your audience or thinking about who might like what you want or what you do, is to really reverse engineer, first of all, your own inspirations. If you really like drawing a certain thing, or maybe you are doing poetry or you're writing stories and you're drawn to certain topics that you write about, think about what makes those interesting to you, and maybe think about other people who might be in a phase of their life. Maybe you write romance stories. Okay, here we go. This is a good practical example. Let's say you like writing romance short stories. Okay, and you realize that you started reading those stories, let's say shortly after a breakup or something like that, and it was some sort of escape for you, or maybe you'd want a different genre after a break. I don't know. But let's say that whatever you're writing, maybe you write a certain kind of book, and you realize that you got into that genre after a breakup. And if you're going to keep writing things in that same genre, it might not be a bad idea to create other content that you think would be helpful around that genre. This is kind of like funny idea if we're going for the like post-breakup thing, but other things, I guess what I mean is other things that could be interesting to a person who just went through a breakup or could be helpful, etc. Maybe you you put out a poem alongside your book that deals with heartbreak and recovery, or you have an image or quote you put out with the message of it always gets better, or you start a podcast doing some audio content related to coping mechanisms, being happy on your own and independent. You decide some local ice cream brand is someone you should partner with, and for when people are sad and eating a lot of ice cream, and you associate your novel, you give a free ebook copy of your novel away with every tub of ice cream or something like that. I don't know. There's a million ways you can go with this, but the point is that really digging down a layer deeper, not just people like people who listen. I could just say people who listen to music will like my music, but I know that if I dig down a little further, based on the topics I write about, it's people who listen to music, but who also are probably chasing a certain dream, want encouragement for that, are dealing with maybe some of the same emotions I do because I write about those topics. You can extend that even further and say if they're chasing a certain dream that they want, maybe it's other artistic people, and therefore maybe they want to also leave their job at some point that they don't really like that much, and that can influence the type of content I put out around that, which is exactly what this podcast is, helping people in that kind of vein of thinking. That's why I'm doing this. Very transparent about that and how I arrive at those decisions. Could work, I could decide to do more song topics that focus on things like that, etc. So I know I said a couple minutes ago we were closing it off, but then we got into a ramble, and hopefully there was some good and useful stuff in that ramble as well. But now we will absolutely close it out. Thank you so much for listening. If you know someone who this kind of content might be useful, someone who just started a business on their own, someone who is just a creative soul, really, who wants to they're really talented at something, but maybe they're always afraid of putting it out, or they say, I don't have enough time for it, or maybe they feel a little discouraged about how to navigate making something that they're really passionate about a bigger part of their life, and maybe a financially providing part of their life as well. Direct them to this content. Let them know about the podcast wherever you're if you're hearing it somewhere, or if you're watching it on YouTube, the video version, either way. And then I will see you guys next week. And this has been How to Art, the podcast for dream chasers and creative types who want to art. My name is Petravita, Petravita. Is that right? If it isn't, it's all right. It's all right. But anyways, love you all. Thanks so much for listening, for being around, and we'll see you next week. Let me know what you liked about this episode, what I can improve on. Peace. Girl, I see a lot more faithful days when I catch a glimpse of your face. You're the silver lining to every mistake that I might do. I dreamt about a goddess and she looked just like you. Yeah. My head spin and my heart race when your lips whisper my name. Tell me how you cracked the code. How'd you get the best of me? Others took small pieces, well you got the whole damn recipe.